June 30, 2023. This is the S&P 500 eFutures Mini 2000 tick chart on the NinjaTrader 8 platform. You can look at the descriptions below to see where I saw setups as well as where I took my trades. There's only one piece of economic data that came out today, which was the core PCE number, which was the price index. It came out at around 5:30 Pacific Standard, which is about right here. But as you can see in the pre-market, prices are already kind of trending up. And then when the numbers came out, the market reacted pretty positively. So it kind of caused things to skyrocket. Overall, once the market opened, prices kind of stayed choppy and it stayed within a pretty much a trading range. You could argue that it's kind of stayed in pretty much a 30-point trading range. It stayed kind of in the center, then it rallied a little bit and kind of finished off in the trading range. I only took 2 trades today. Both were green for me. The second trade, in hindsight, after I looked at it, I think it was a little riskier, and I probably shouldn't have taken it, but I took it, I think, in the moment where I thought I saw something and I anticipated and jumped in early. Fortunately, it worked out for me. But when I look back on it, I don't think it was necessarily a high probability trade, and I very likely just lucked out on that one. I'm going to go into the trades today. This gray area is the pre-market. As you can see, after the 5:30 announcement, Pacific Standard, prices are already moving up. This is the pre-market highs and the pre-market lows. And originally, I thought things might have been in a trading range like this, but it's hard to know immediately because prices just went up, touched the top, consolidated, but didn't. Well, you'll find out later, it didn't really come back down and touch the bottom. So the high and low of the pre-market didn't really come into play. So prices opened, bounced off the EMA. EMA is holding, showing strength. I do see this channel, but I don't see a good setup. And this is also the pre-market, so I don't trade the pre-market. Pops around. It looks like this trading range might be holding, and this could be a failed breakout. But I'm just sitting tight, watching. It comes back. This resistance now becomes potentially a support. It was consolidating in this smaller range, and it starts moving up. So I do draw this trend channel going up. It kind of confirms the bottom at least twice, and now it's confirming a few times at the top. Confirms the third time at the bottom. This is actually a pretty good reaction because it is 2 key entry points, but there's no setup, so I have to leave it alone. Let's continue moving. This is where I actually take my first trade and where I saw the first setup. Now, you could argue this is a double top, but I counted individually. The reason I counted individually is because when I saw this trend, it's clearly a bullish day, and it's fitting nicely within this trend channel. And prices are continuing to go up, but there's very small pullbacks, and the pullbacks aren't very substantial compared to the rally going up. So I actually counted this as a new high, first entry long. You could argue this resets the count to be a double top, but I counted this as new high here, first entry long, second entry long. I like this signal bar. It's a good signal bar. It's also bouncing off the EMA. It just barely touches, but it bounces. And it's a very strong signal bar. It's bullish. So I thought I saw 2 key entry points. One is this one, this ascending trend channel coming up. The second one is this EMA. And the third one, so even though it didn't quite touch, it was getting pretty close. The third one is I saw a potential trading range consolidation. So I saw this bounce up and I thought there's enough room to get to the top. So I actually just waited and I entered 1 tick above here. And I saw there was enough room to get out before I hit the top. And you can see this little magenta arrow is 1 tick before it hits the top because I didn't want to risk potentially hitting the top and bouncing. So I only took a really quick scalp. Turned out it worked out pretty well. Prices continue chopping up. I do see another second entry long. Now, this is a very similar setup. You can count this as a double top. I don't like this setup as much because even though I say this is a new high, first entry long, if I don't reset the count, this is potentially setting up a second entry long. But this time, the EMA, again, is holding, but this is a very bearish bar, so it's not a good signal bar. Now, even though it looks similar to this one felt like it was a little bit stronger. It's consolidating in a trading range that's fully developed. This one looked like it broke out and is coming back in. So there's an overshoot here. My concern is it could potentially come back out to this side, so I didn't want to go long. If this signal bar was a little more bullish, closed near the top, then I would have probably put 1 entry right on the next candle. If I did that, looks like it would have gotten filled, And in this case, it would have worked out, but I didn't know that at the time, so I left it alone. And as you can see, prices continue moving up. This channel is pretty strong. It's confirmed another and confirms with another touch right here. Prices continue moving up. However, it's not making it to the top anymore. So it is kind of looks like it's losing steam, although it is bullish. Prices continue moving up. Now this is the first break. So this is the first break, and I'm thinking it might come back up to test the highs. The first entry long here. Now it doesn't even give you a second entry long. It just keeps going up. It tests the high right here now. So the move could have been completed. And now there could actually be a substantial, more positive correction. But overall, the market all day has been pretty bullish. So I'm not ready to go long or short. Prices flash down. You do have a first entry long here. Technically, you have a second entry long here, but I didn't count it as that. So what I saw here, I saw this is one leg down, pulls up, second leg down, and pulls up here. So technically it's first leg, first entry, second entry. I grouped these together as one leg and then up. So second entry long. However, I also saw a new low here, first entry short, and you actually get a second entry short right here. But I saw it as one leg up, pull back, second leg up, and a potential pullback here. So there is a second entry short here and potentially a lower high, but it's a little confusing. And it's also, it is a good signal bar, and the lower high does confirm the second entry long that kind of failed, but it is this lower high confirming the second entry short. So it's first entry short, second entry short right here, and then this lower high coming back down. However, it's far from the EMA. It feels like there's a little bit of conflicting things coming on, so I just kind of decided to leave it alone. Prices move down. It goes back up, and I see this one touch, two touch. It seems like there's some kind of resistance up here, but I'm not sure if there's an actual channel. Excuse me, if there's an actual trading range, because there could be one here. And excuse me, I wasn't sure if the second part of the channel or the range could be down here or down here. So I actually didn't treat it as a range yet. I just treated it as a resistance up here. Prices continue moving up. I see second entry long here. So it's a new high, first entry long, potential second entry long coming up here. I also see this is a potential trade simply because you have a new low here. Technically, you have its first entry short, second entry short, but I also saw it as one move up, first break. So it'd be like first entry short, comes back, second entry short. There's also a first entry long, second entry long. So if there's one more candle that comes up to here, then I thought it would have been a confirmed second entry long and a confirmed failure on the second entry short visual, because technically you have a first entry short, second entry short. As I said, I saw first entry short, second entry short. If it ticks up higher, then it has two key entry points. EMA is holding. I thought this was a potential trade. There's enough room to the highs that was recently made, which is here. So I certainly wouldn't want to try to scalp out above here because it looks like this is some kind of resistance that might hold. I didn't take this trade though, but if I did put it one tick above, it's unsure of me. I'm unsure if I would have actually gotten filled because it looked like it just opened here, flashed down, and immediately moved back up. So I don't know if I would have got picked up. But I did take this trade, but I'll admit that this trade, this is my second trade of the day. It was a little bit early and a little risky because I was anticipating a move. So I saw this as a new low, first entry short, second entry short, a potential failure. So on this candle, even though it didn't confirm a second entry short yet, you could say it's a first entry short. This is the second entry short because it went down. It opened, broke up higher, and came back down on this green candle. And then on this one, when it flashed up and came back, that's where technically, even though it's kind of a hidden second entry short because it hasn't confirmed yet, I saw it as a failure and I jumped in early. Now, I'm going to admit in hindsight, I should have been patient and left this trade alone because it is very congested. These candles are side by side. So there's nothing indicating that this would have worked out or it was even really high probability. At most, I feel like it was more like a mid probability. I should have skipped this trade. I was lucky though, and it danced around. I had my stop actually two ticks below this, not just one tick, but two ticks. But if one tick would have just saved me, but I kept the two ticks because it kept it, I think, closer to be below the EMA. And I was able to scalp out. So again, this trade, in hindsight, I don't think was actually a good trade to have taken, but I was just lucky it happened to work out. Prices continue moving up. It chops. I do see a second entry long that fails that's hidden. Now, why do I say that? Because it's a new high. First entry long. Technically, it's a second entry long. Why do I say second entry long? Even though it hasn't broken up above, it's a hidden second entry long because it went one move up, pulls back, it breaks below, comes back up, didn't necessarily break above higher, but it did close higher. So in the smaller time frame, it looked like it's one move up, pull back, second move up, but then it fails on this big candle here. I saw this failure. Maybe there was a trade here. I just didn't like that this is a little convoluted, and it did require me to kind of read this quickly in real time to interpret this. But if I did catch it in time, I think I would have placed my trade not one tick below this, but maybe one tick below this green bar. It looked like it would have filled me here. Again, I would have kept my stop actually probably above one tick above here. So in this hypothetical trade, I would have got picked up here, and most likely I would have gotten my scalp here. And prices continue moving down. It chops around. Do see a first entry short here, second entry short. I didn't like the second entry short just because it's too far from the EMA. It is kind of confirming this shortened trend channel coming down, but I just didn't like the looks of it. Plus, it is looking like there's a localized support here, and I don't want to sell into a support. Prices continue moving down. At this point, I do draw. I was playing with a trading range because I saw this double top, but I wasn't sure where the bottom was. And at one time I was here. I actually dragged it down to here. Then I actually dragged it finally down to here. And when this confirmed, I was more confident that this is part of a bigger blue trading range, as you can see here. Tops here and the bottom there. And I don't see any quick setup here until you get about right here. So I saw this as a new low. So first entry short comes up. Right here makes a second entry short because it actually ticks below here. You have a second entry short. You also have a higher low. So if you can count this as one big consolidation as one localized low, even though technically it did strike lower here, you say this is a higher low here, and you could say it's a second entry short that's about to fail. The second entry short not only gets confirmed here, but it also fails on the same candle. And I think this is a possible trade to have taken. And I would have put my trade one tick above this one because it closed very strong, very bullish. It looked pretty clean. If I did take it, I would have gotten filled here. It looks like I would have gotten my scalp probably on this candle or on this candle. The prices continue moving down. If I waited for more than just 1 point, my stop would have been one tick below here. Right here, I would have been safe. Still would have been safe. And it would have moved up, and I would have been. This trade would have worked out even if I wanted to hold on for 2 points. But I would have probably just went with 1 point because I was a little unsure. Prices continue moving up. It almost hits the top of this trading range. Now it does, and I'm wondering if it's going to be a breakout, a failed breakout. Continues moving up. At this point, I do draw the top of this channel. It confirms 3 times. I wasn't sure if it really was a true channel, and I just arbitrarily put the bottom here because it kind of confirms twice. Here I do see a second entry long, first entry long, second entry long. I don't like the second entry long though because it's a bad signal bar, even though it is being supported by this channel going up. It's only been touched, can confirm a second time. You could argue it's maybe 1 touch, 2 touch, 3 touch, but when it's this close, I like to just count it as 1 touch. And this is technically the second touch. It's a pretty bad signal bar. If it was more green or more bullish, I think I would have put my entry 1 tick above, got filled here. Looks like it would have worked for at least 1 quick point. And I do see a failed second entry short here because I saw a new low here. First entry short, second entry short. This second entry short is confirmed right here. And then here, it hasn't failed yet, but it's getting close. Here again, it's a triple test, but it still hasn't, not a triple test, but a triple touch micro top. It hasn't failed yet, but here I would be reluctant to take a trade just because it had to be 1 tick above, but you're already coming into this noticeable consolidation. It looks like it's falling into a range, so you'd be buying at the top of the range. I need a little more confirmation. You are making higher lows, but it still felt a little iffy. So if I did put my trade here, it was likely where a bunch of stops were placed for people that are going short. And I'll admit that I used to take these type of trades, but this I didn't like as much just because there's only 2 localized highs. If these were all crushing down where this blue line was, they all kind of met there, then I would have felt more confident putting my trade one tick above this blue line. But it looked like it broke above here and it broke above the second time and it was having trouble here. So there wasn't enough of a hunch, in my opinion, to place one tick above here. But in this case, it did work. So if only these guys actually moved one tick up and matched all these with matching highs, then I would know for sure there were a bunch of stop orders for people going short, and that would have carried the momentum up on the buying. But it didn't quite set up the way I like, so I left it alone. Prices continue moving. I do see a failed second entry short that's hidden. So I see a new low here. So first entry short actually breaks one tick above and comes right back down. So I saw one first entry short on the same candle, forms a second entry short, comes down, it confirms here. So it's the second entry short. I'm wondering if it's going to be a failure. And here, this is the second entry short failure. On a wider 2000 tick chart, you could see it's just first entry short, and you don't see a second entry short. But I saw it as potentially a second entry short failure. It is a little subtle. It's hidden and it was kind of convoluted. So I wasn't, even now, I'm not 100% sure I'm reading it correctly, but I did see enough room for a scalp, but I still didn't want to take the trade just because I haven't seen this enough to accurately judge if I'm reading the charts correctly. So with it alone, prices continue moving up. I do draw this bottom support and this top resistance. The resistance isn't that firm yet, but I do trust the support a little bit more. I saw this as a new high here. Technically, it's a new first entry long and second entry long, but I counted this as a localized new high. So it's first entry long, potentially second entry long setting up here. Here it confirms. Now, I would have had my trade more ready, except I don't like the looks of this signal bar. It's kind of a poor signal bar. It's a little bit too neutral. I need to close a little higher for me to feel safe, to know there's enough momentum to carry me through before it hit the localized top. But it turns out it would have worked. It's okay. I just didn't like that setup though. Prices continue chopping. There are like second entry longs here, but they're just kind of, they don't set up nicely. It's too congested because between here, it's 44.95 and here, 44.93. It's only really 2 points. So trying to get a 1 point scalp feels a little risky here. So I left it alone. It is also kind of creeping toward the end of the day. This is also the last day of the trading month and trading quarter. Plus we're going into holiday weekend. So just writing this out to the end of the day, I saw some setups, but I just didn't want to risk it because this looks very, very tight and very congested. And as you can see, prices just kind of moved all the way into the close. And this is already the last 10 minutes where you do get a lot of candles, but it just feels dicey now because I don't want to end the week or the month on a red like that. So I just kind of watched and waited. It went into the close. So it was a pretty interesting day. There was a little bit more interpretation on my end of hidden second entries, whether they're valid or not. It's something where I saw, but I didn't take them. Second trade was a little more riskier, but overall, it was a very interesting day. It was pretty congested and kind of in a trading range after the open. So it didn't continue this big rally. It did rally and then consolidated, it seemed like. So hopefully that was helpful.